So thank you for watching. This is the Indie Comic Book Guide. Today I have artist, business owner, legend in her own mind in the making, Dani Smith.
Greetings and salutations.
I know. And I wanted to talk to her for a while. I always joke online about she won't draw for me or paint something. She's like, dude, I've offered many times. You won't pay me. I can't afford you. No, but that's good. That's good, though. But today we're going to talk about your new webcomic. So tell the people a little bit about the webcomic and what led to you deciding that now was the time to create this.
So, forgive me if I ramble in advance.
No, go for it.
Perfect. I've been in the comics industry since about 2009. I actually started out in publishing when I was 29. I got my first prose novel published by a little company called Liquid Silver Books. It was a fantasy novel. Long story short, things progressed. I started out doing fantasy novels and horror novels, painting my own covers, but it was all prose. And then when I got pregnant with my son in 2011, I started to get into doing comics because I was on bed rest. And it was an easy way for me to pass the time because, being a high-risk pregnant woman on bed rest is really boring. You don't get to do anything. You sit around. And I could only watch the original Mad Max, a certain number of times before I needed to find something else to do.
Exactly.
So long story short, I bought my first tablet. I started dabbling in digital art. Was horrible at it at first. Worked at it. Taught myself from the ground up how to do comics. Watched YouTube videos like yourself.
Yep.
And learned. Published my first actual physical comic. I think it was around like 2013 or 2014. Don't quote me on that, but it was around that. Hit a bestseller list. It was a bestseller on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
In the United States and in Australia, I outsold digital issues, select digital issues of comics like Hellboy and Last Airbender. So that was a nice run. That kind of got my name out there, which is unusual for an indie. And I thank the universe every day for that because it boosted me quite a bit, including boosting my fragile ego. So long story short, I've been in comics for a long time. I originally published Shale City as a novel. It came out last October, but I had always intended for it to be a comic. And around the time that we started having issues with the whole COVID-19, which we're all dealing with, oh so fun, I started hearing about people are going broke. People in every industry are going broke. People creatively, people are losing their jobs. People I know personally are losing their jobs. People can't, I wanted to provide something to people for free. So I decided to turn Shale City into a webcomic kind of on a whim and just see how it goes. So forgive me in advance. It is a totally new venture for me. I'm very used to doing print. Basically, within 2 weeks, I had to teach myself a new format, which is vertical comics rather than regular page format, which I ended up in tears at least once over that. So, but I've launched 2 episodes so far. Happy with the result. Obviously, it's slow going because when you're a little indie, you start a new venture, you have to get out there everywhere you possibly can, and it's like at a snail's pace.
Exactly.
But for me, number one is quality. So what I've done as things with COVID-19 have progressed, I now have my son at home. My husband and I are homeschooling him with the help of our family. So I went from doing the first 2 episodes on a weekly basis. Now I'm going to be doing it bi-weekly, just temporarily, every Monday. And then I'll go back to doing weekly once things kind of calm down a little bit and we kind of go back to normal.
Exactly.
Right. In a nutshell, Shale City is basically my answer to the punk rock fairy tale, which is something that, right, it's something that I haven't seen done much. I mean, urban fantasy is really popular right now, but I wanted to do something that kind of grabbed hold of that 1970s and early 80s visceral, like actual punk rock scene, and apply it to like fantasy creatures like Fawn and fairies and mermaids and kitsune and, you know, the creatures that haunt our mythological dreamscapes, so to speak. And the end result is it's really fun. And I'm going to be able to pretty much do whatever I want with it.
No, I love that. I love that. So let's start with the first chapter.
Okay.
What happens in the first chapter? I read the first 2 chapters and I messaged you. I was like, I'm confused. And you were like, it's a dream. Trust me, it's going somewhere.
It's going somewhere, I promise. So in a nutshell, yes, the first episode is primarily a dream sequence. Each of the episodes is about between anywhere from 20 to 40 panels. It may change over time, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. And the first episode, yes, it's primarily a dream sequence. Shale City is really about a father and a daughter. And when we start out, the father is out on the road with his daughter. She's maybe 5 or 6 years old. He's a fawn, and she is half fawn, half kitsune. If anybody doesn't know what a kitsune is, that's basically a Japanese, kind of like a fox fairy or a fox spirit. Long story short, we learned very early on that the way this child came about did not have a happy ending. Her mother is dead. And basically her father, who's the hero of the story, is having a nightmare about, you know, witnessing, basically witnessing, his daughter get killed by his old enemy. And it's all a dream, it's all a dream, but we're not supposed to know that at first. And then episode 2, we go into the father being out on the road with the daughter. Anybody who has kids or even has pets will understand that, we go through the frustration of, trying to make their lives as normal as possible, even when we're against adversity. I'm sure we're doing that right now. So, the second episode kind of goes through him waking up from this nightmare and then kind of getting her ready for their day. They're in this abandoned building. He's getting her ready for their day and going through things as normally as possible and trying not to lose his mind. So that's kind of how the story starts out.
Yeah, because when I read it, my mind immediately started thinking about old Vertigo titles from DC.
Awesome.
And
Thank
it
you.
Also
I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And immediately your art style, I started thinking Saga. I was like, I can see this. And I mentioned this to you, and you were like, you know what? That's one of my biggest influences artistically, Fiona.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because I'm reading this. At first, I was like, wait a minute. Did this little girl have her period? And you were like, no. Her mom, like she died during childbirth. And I went and read it again and looked at the images again. I was like, oh, where's my mind at?
It was a bit befuddled, that dream sequence thing.
But that's good because art in general, because by nature, you are an artist. You're a painter.
Right.
And so seeing you adapt these things to comic book form, there's a lot of layers to it that the average comic book fan is just totally going to, dismiss because we're so used to being programmed with superhero titles and things like that, or zombie titles, that when you present fine art and put it in a comic book form, it's so many little details in there that we're probably not even going to pick up until chapter 7 or 8 or 9. And that's why I had to go back and reread it. I'm like, that's the mark of a good storyteller. When you're like, wait a minute, I must have missed something. Let me go back. So I'm in. I'm hooked on this.
And
I'm one of those people.
Awesome.
I don't read web comics that often, but I was like, you know what? This is good. I'm liking this.
Awesome. That's a huge honor, and that tells me that what I'm creating is impacting the reader in the way that I intended. So, I'm really big on quality. I'm big on quality storytelling. I'm big on even adding little literary notes, and it sounds like that was successful as well. Not trying to be too highbrow, of course, but also not trying to be too one-dimensional, if that makes sense.
No.
So it's all. I'm thrilled to hear that's so far that's successful, and that's going to be the intention for the full series. When I originally published on Webtoon, which is one of the two websites that Shale City is currently running on, it's on Webtoon and on Tapas as well. I kind of looked over some of the real popular ones that have just millions and millions of readers. And, I kind of went, oh, I really don't fit into those categories. You can't categorize what I'm doing. And maybe that's going to be detrimental as far as bringing in an audience really fast. But I'd rather stand out. And in the end, I think that's going to benefit. So hopefully.
Yeah, it's definitely going to benefit.
Yeah.
Especially what happens with web series, I've noticed they will slowly build a following.
Exactly.
And then when you decide, hey, I'm going to collect these chapters into a volume, and you'll be surprised at how many people are like, hey, I want it. Because people like that physical copy. And I noticed some some web series creators, they never collected into a physical form, which I think is definitely a missed opportunity.
Oh, I agree thoroughly. I think that it's a bridge. I think that as far as comics go today, that especially when you're an indie and you're not a monopoly like, the big two or the big three publishers, you have to basically grab every opportunity you can by the throat. And whether it's like me where I started in print and I'm jumping into webcomics or vice versa, you're doing webcomics, you built a strong following. Now let's hit the print market and maybe the Kindle or Comixology download market. Absolutely. You've got to do all of it.
You really do. Let's go back. Let's go back in time a little bit. How did you end up at a performing arts school? And how was that experience? Because I grew up, and it was a TV show called Fawn, where the kids all went to a performing arts school for dance, singing, art, all that wonderful stuff. And where I grew up, we didn't have nothing like that. So I was always jealous and envious of that lifestyle. So how was that experience?
That experience was absolutely amazing. In some ways, it was probably a lifesaver for me. Definitely a sanity saver. When I was in elementary school, I was picked on a lot. I was kind of awkward. I was like this awkward, skinny little thing. And I didn't fit in. And my parents were wise enough to go, oh, she's not of the same ilk as everyone else. Let's funnel her where she kind of needs to go. And it was absolutely hitting nail on head. I ended up attending the San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts, which is a public art school.
Wow.
Very fortunate in that way. So it was completely free, just like any public school. I was exposed to college level art courses, as well as dance, music, theater, film. I actually was an avid dancer just as much as I was an artist and a creative writer. I was actually a ballerina and then an Irish step dancer for a number of years. So a lot of people didn't know that about me either.
No.
So yeah, it was a great exposure that really set me up for an artistic life. And
Nice.
I'm still close to a lot of the people that I went to high school with. Actually, my current tattoo artist is a guy that I've known since I was 14. My IT guy, and actually my husband's IT guy, is also a guy I knew from SCPA. Helps us set up for all of our digital art stuff. So yeah, it was a blessing, and I
like that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
In this environment at the performing arts school, where you have the so-called weirdos and outcasts, and free spirits. How was that environment? Was it different from traditional high school, or did you still have the same cliques like the jocks and the nerds and so forth?
For sure, for sure. It might have been tweaked a little bit. We didn't actually have sports at our school. Kids would actually go out who wanted to play sports or cheerlead or what have you. They would actually go have the opportunity to go to other schools and join their teams. So our jocks were dancers, or martial artists. I'm not kidding.
I'm trying to get comfortable. I'm on the floor. I'm like, wait a minute. So the dancers were bullying people.
No joke. Like I remember there was this one guy who was like a total dick.
Man in tights.
He was, and he could do 10 pirouettes in a row. And that was like, he was hot shit because of that.
That is crazy.
So yeah, no joke. We didn't have the football players. We had, guys who were dancing since they could walk. So yeah, but it was, a lot of it was the same. We had regular academia as well. We had science, we had, literature and English, foreign language, mathematics. They just tried to make it more in tune with the creative brain.
Nice. I like that. Now, your husband, Alex, he's also an artist.
Yes, phenomenal artist. He's actually going to be taking over the colors on Shale City as of our next episode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, did y'all meet in high school?
No, actually.
Damn. I was hoping for that love story.
Right? No. We met around 2010, 2011.
Playing WoW?
Yeah, I was already married. He was I was working 2 jobs. Including at an art store.
This interview's getting better and better now.
He walks in with a guy who is now still a good friend of both of ours. He walks in with his big old sexy ass mohawk and his spiked jacket. Hint, read Shale City. You'll see something interesting about the hero there.
Nice.
Walked in to buy some spray paint because he's a muralist and an airbrush artist, very talented, as well as digital artist. Walked in with a mutual friend, and I was standing at the cash register painting, which I wasn't supposed to be doing, by the way, but we were dead and the manager wasn't there, so I was painting, and walked in and we started talking, and long story short, we became really, really good friends. I started doing art shows with him. And, over the years, on and off, we'd lose touch, but we'd always come back around. I had my son, got divorced. About 3 years after I got divorced, he hits me up one day on Facebook and says, "Hey, let's go out." He was single. I was single. Started out kind of just like, let's test the waters and have some fun. And he proposed to me a year later.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Was it at Comic-Con? Where?
No, he proposed to me in his studio apartment. We were both super drunk.
Nice. I can picture this. It's like you're doing shots. It's like, hey, you want to get married? You're like, I ain't doing nothing tomorrow. Why not?
Why not? Let's do it. So yeah, and he's a great stepfather to my son. We're still best friends, and now we're husband and wife, and I'm blessed all around. I wouldn't trade him for the world. I married my best friend, and I married my twin flame.
Nice. So, I like that.
We're a power couple.
Y'all are. Do y'all ever compete with each other art-wise? Like, hey, I can outdo you on this concept drawing or on this painting or whatever. Do y'all ever compete?
We don't. There's really no animosity. There's really no jealousy. We just encourage each other. And if there's something I don't know how to do, I ask him. I say, "Hey, can you help me?" He's a Photoshop genius. I'm not. So, he could teach college level Photoshop. Oh, wow. I look at Photoshop and I go, half the time. So he helps me with that. He'll help me with the tips and tricks. I help him with Manga Studio and Clip Studio Paint, which I use a lot more because I make comics.
Exactly. Does he still have a mohawk?
He doesn't. He shaved it off.
Oh.
So yeah, maybe someday. But
I know, right? It's like bring it back for the anniversary.
He's all about dad life right now. So
I love that. See, I love these love stories of how couples meet. And I always have a theory that a guy will hang around a woman for years waiting for his chance. It's like, you got to get divorced sometime so I can confess my love.
Apparently that's what happens. So, yeah.
We're very patient that way.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad it worked out. So tell me about Quick Draw Studios. What do y'all do?
So Quick Draw Studios is basically our little itty bitty studio where we pump out our projects. That includes our comics, our novels. One of these days we're hoping to maybe start doing like short films or animation. We're not even close to that yet, but it's kind of in the back of our minds. We're also parents and we have to make time for that. So we can't be too ambitious. But basically, you could consider Quick Draw Studios to be a boutique publisher at this point in time. Boutique publisher and art studio. Boutique meaning really, 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 really tiny, like this big, like microscopic.
Now, you told me you're shy.
Yes. Painfully.
So, because I had asked you before the interview, I was like, have you done a lot of interviews on podcasts and so forth? And you're like, no. People have asked, but just never found out. But you have this energy and this light about you where I could see you doing your own show. Maybe you and your husband could do your own show. That would be cool.
Really?
Yes.
That is a great idea. I love it.
You got to build that brand.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you for advice and throw you some free art in exchange.
I do love free art. So let's go back to the comic. So we used to saying issues. Chapters 1 and 2 are out now, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what can we expect from upcoming the story arc in the next few chapters? What can we expect to happen? To see?
So basically, what we're going to be doing is in the next probably 1 to 2 chapters, we're going to stay with Ash and his daughter Scarlet, and they're on the road. They're basically on the run, and as we travel with them on their journey, we're actually going to go back in time. We're going to be journeying back to basically a prequel, and there's going to be a pretty sizable chunk of the story going forward where we go back in time and learn how Ash met Scarlet's mother, Iona.
Oh, nice.
And that whole storyline is basically going to be in first person from Ash's perspective. Beyond that part of the story, which is going to be extensive, we'll then follow Scarlet as she grows up. That, of course, is in development, but you can expect a very large, Star Wars-esque prequel storyline where we basically journey to Shale City, the moniker that the storyline is named for, and we go back and learn about that. So there's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be some romance, a lot of action, and it's going to be very much following a fairly detailed fairy tale that progresses up to Scarlet's birth. And I'm going to be really excited to share it with everybody.
No, I like this. And I like that you're using a lot of Eastern storytelling techniques. Because in the West, we kind of limit things to a particular format. And it's like, hey, this is what sells. This is how the story should go. And leave it at that. But I like the fact that you're breaking that tradition and telling a more organic story where you really get in touch with who the characters are as people, even though they're not, people in traditional sense. We're talking mythological creatures, but they're people. So what other kind of fae are involved in here? Because I'm one of those people, and my wife, we love anything that has to do with fairies and,
awesome.
Angels, all kind of different creatures. So what other kind of creatures inhabit this world?
So, well, you like angels. You'd actually like one of my other series I'll have to tell you about sometime. But in this particular story, we've got a lot of Greco-Roman. So Fawn, satyrs. We have traditional fairies, like winged fairies. They're at a certain point in the storyline, we're also going to encounter some merfolk. So there's going to be mermaids, selkies, kitsune. So from the Japanese mythology, probably going to have some dragons. Pretty much whatever strikes my fancy and fits in with the storyline. Is going to be applied. This is basically my series with no holds barred.
I like that.
I'm going to do whatever I feel like. I'm going to, and it may change, but in the initial part of the story, we've got the fox fae, and the Greco-Roman characters from Greek and Roman mythology. Quite a bit of that.
I think it'd be cool one day. You go to a con. You have a table and somebody walks by and they're cosplaying as one of your characters. That would be the ultimate compliment. I'm waiting on that to happen for me. But
it actually happened for me a couple years ago with my best-selling series, Black Dog and Rebel Rose. The heroine was actually cosplayed by someone, I think, in New Jersey. And they ended up doing a whole photo shoot and sending me the photos. And trust me, it was like bucket list. I was like, crossed off. So when it does happen to you, my friend, pop a bottle of champagne because it's worth it.
I'm going to cry because I remember when I first got my first comic, or anytime I get a comic and I get the proof, I'm looking at it like, this is my baby.
Yes.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Best feeling. Yeah, it is.
Now, okay. Couple more questions before I let you go. With the coronavirus and everything, there's a lot of people going around with this narrative, oh, the comic book industry is dead. How do you feel about that? Is it true, or do you think people are jumping the gun and just believing the hype?
I think that I don't think the comic book industry is dead by any means, but I do think it's going to have to evolve, which is what I'm doing through the webcomic attempt. I'm trying to offer people something for free that they can enjoy, while also continuing to build my audience and kind of just moving with the times. I got the news that something was going on with Diamond distributors. They're not accepting any new comics. They're either going under or I don't know what the actual story is. But there are always options, whether we start, using indie comic printers, going through book publishers like Barnes & Noble, which I've done, or Amazon like CreateSpace, or we start doing more web comics, offering more free platform with donations through Patreon, or we start doing Xerox copies again. Who knows?
I remember those days.
You remember those days, 20 years ago. The kiddies won't, but we do.
They have no clue.
Yeah, but we're going to have to evolve. And those of us who are willing to evolve and go with the flow and basically drop the paddle and go up Bleep Creek together, see where it goes, those are the people that are going to survive. And I think it's just that simple.
I agree 100%. I just got news from Ben Dunn, who is to create a Ninja High School, and he helped bring me into Antarctic Press. He just issued a statement regarding Diamond, saying Diamond isn't going to pay anyone right now.
No,
they're having cash flow problems. So this puts a lot of medium and small press publishers like Antarctic Press or, publishers on that level really, questioning their next move. So
for
the
sure.
next couple of months, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, because a lot of us, we've already adapted, like you said, to Patreon or Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and some people are making 20, 30, 50, 60,000 off of one book. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Without a big name or a publisher attached. So you're right. People are going to have to change and evolve and rethink, hey, do I still want to do this?
Yeah. And I think that comes back. It sounds cheesy and maybe like a cliche, but in a nutshell, you have to enjoy it first. You have to love it first. That's the only way you're going to get through this. When I sat down and started drawing Shale City, started this whole webcomic thing, I was terrified. I'm still terrified. I put out 2 issues and I only have 20 subscribers after I was hitting bestseller lists in print 10 years ago. Yeah, I'm scared out of my mind. So what I have to do is I have to remind myself the audience will come eventually if I keep putting stuff out, and to enjoy myself first. Do it as a release, as a way to escape from the bad news that we're all getting these days, and like I said, to evolve. And I suggest everybody try to do the same. And if you need any encouragement, hit me up, because I will encourage you. I will not let you stop.
No, I love that. One thing, one of my editors, Chuck Pinu, he'd start doing
Chuck's
is, I know, right? He edits for like everybody now.
Yeah.
No, what I like doing at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes I'll call Chuck just to wake him up and hang up.
Good, he deserves it.
I have a short list of creators that I call like early in the morning, and we have the best conversations. I wish I could record those conversations, but those are the best conversations, because sometimes in your daily life, you don't have people to talk shop with. So I value those conversations. Now I lost my train of thought. It was something about Chuck. Oh, yeah, he's doing an audio book in chapters, like an audio series called Essence House. See, Chuck, I'm promoting your stuff. And I think with some web series, especially one like yours, see how it all circles around. Since this is fantasy, I think it would work well in that format as well. I don't know if that's something you considered at a future date. So I think that would be awesome.
I would consider it now, because there's a Shale City novel out. You can buy the novel, the prose novel, everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's out. So I would love to translate that into an audiobook format. That would be fantastic.
I think you should. I think you should read it. Yeah, you. Yes, you, Dani Smith.
Jodie Foster voice. Oh my God. Come on,
everybody hates their voice. I just feel like I sound like a girl. I hate my voice.
That's hilarious.
I haven't reached puberty yet, but no, it's good that you are thinking about that, because that opens you up to a whole different market. Audiobooks are a killer. It's a little harder with like superhero type stuff. People really don't want to hear superhero audiobooks, but fantasy, perfect fit.
Exactly. Agreed.
Now I have one more question.
Yes.
Since you're a writer and an artist, how does that work brain-wise? Because I'm always interested in how people's brains work. How do you shut one off and shut the other on? Like, okay, I'm in my writer brain, I'm in my artist brain. How does that work for you?
You know what's funny? I tend to go through phases where I will do a whole bunch of writing, and then I'll do a whole bunch of art. And then a whole bunch of writing, and then a whole bunch of art. Rarely do I do both at the same time. That's just what works for me. With comics, I find that while I'm drawing, the writing will actually change, or vice versa. So it's hard to explain. I apologize, but it's hard to explain.
No, you just explained it
like
perfectly.
Because
that's how my brain works too. You just explained it perfectly.
See, you get it. You get the
I get
insanity.
it. I get the insanity. That's why there's always music.
Exactly. And sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just gonna zone out. I tell my boys, I'm plugging in. Peace. Peace. I'm plugging in.
Okay.
I'm
So
rock out.
you gotta rock out. All right, so that's all the time we got today. I'm gonna post the links to your webcomic as well as your book, your novel, in the description for everybody to see. Any final words you want people to know about this amazing web series?
Yes. Make sure to follow me on Instagram because I do put a lot of art updates. I'm just at Dani Quick Draw, DANI quick like a fox draw. And there's also a Shale City Instagram that you can follow as well.
Now, are you open with the coronavirus thing going on? Are you open for commissions? Because your fantasy artwork is next level.
Thank you. Yes, I'm open to inquiries. I can't guarantee that I will absolutely be able to take them at this point in time, but I'm definitely open. So people should hit me up and just let me know what they're looking for.
All right, works for me. All right, again, Dani, thank you for being here. All y'all, don't forget to like and subscribe. I love y'all. Peace.
Peace out.
Hold on.